Telesur is getting ready to launch its signal in Africa. Our English language channel will be available in 25 countries across the continent. It's another step towards our aim of connecting the global south.
As night falls over the American continent, Telesur's signal will already be rising across the African continent. Cultures, knowledge, debunking the myths of Mother Africa. From there, we will be telling new stories. We want to be a platform for the voices of the African peoples.
We're about to experience the joining of two continents. Our histories have been intricately connected. We share a common cause. A people who share the same dreams for the future. This connection has become a reality today as we extend our TV signal, and the name of that TV signal is Telesur.
The north of Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa. We will be there, bridging the gap.
South Africa is a contested space. It's a space where we've got a free market economy. It's a place where we've had a beautiful reconciliation period, but it's also a place full of contradictions. It is the birthplace of Nelson Mandela, and it is connected in a very, very deep way with the solidarity movements of Latin America.
All the resources of Telesur at its central headquarters in Caracas and in Quito are ready.
So today, Telesur begins its broadcast in Africa, 25 countries in the continent, and we're connecting the global south. I think it's an amazing opportunity. The idea that there's two peoples around the world, one in Latin America and one in Africa, that are so far away, but that still have so many things in common. And the opportunity to have a channel that can actually connect those two, it's just an amazing opportunity.
Our ally in Africa is the production company Moja Media,
where we enter a new era in the media environment in Africa, because Moja Media wants to create a disruptive media environment where we can change the narrative of the current Western focus and multinational focus on the news media and stranglehold of the narrative coming to Africa.
a part of America in the heart of Africa. Telesur, connecting the global south.
To Argentina now, where the currency has continued its free fall. This despite a dramatic move by the central bank to raise interest rates to 60%. The peso lost a further fifth of its value on Thursday. The latest collapse came after President Mauricio Macri asked the IMF to bring forward payments on his $50 billion bailout loan. But the markets have shown they no longer trust the government's ability to deal with the economic crisis.
The market isn't believing the government today, and above all, it's not believing the economic team. I think that if the finance minister and central bank president Luis Caputo don't step aside today, this will get much worse, because it's not a matter that it's happening because of economic measures that were taken, but rather that, at this moment, the actors have lost credibility.
Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has the details of the story.
Another critical day in Argentina as the dollar again shot up and reached 42 pesos. Remember that on Wednesday, President Mauricio Macri issued a recorded message with the intention of bringing confidence and tranquility to the markets, announcing that the International Monetary Fund would advance funds to comply with the financial programs of 2019. After that announcement, the dollar went up 34 pesos and 50 cents, 7.5% higher. Today, it reached 42 pesos. The Minister of Finances announced that next Monday, new economic measures would be announced and that he would travel to the United States to meet the International Monetary Fund to reach an agreement. That is the same agreement which President Macri on Thursday said had already been agreed to, only for his own ministers to come out and clarify that it is actually an intended agreement on the part of the national government. Back to you in the studio.
And now, thousands of Argentine students and teachers marched through Buenos Aires to demand more funding for public education. The protest comes after President Macri's government announced big cuts in public spending, including education, as part of its agreement with the IMF. The demonstrators have rejected a government proposal to boost funding by 15%, arguing that inflation is double that increase.
It's not just a salary demand because our salary demands are historic. But now schools, universities are going down, and it seems the government is not aware of the discontent.
Thursday, August 30th, is the International Day for the Victims of Forced Disappearances. The day was established by the UN General Assembly in 2010. It had been championed by the Latin American Federation of Associations for Relatives of the Detained or the Disappeared. Civil rights groups, activists, and families of victims are demonstrating and making their voices heard. In commemoration of the day, the International Committee of the Red Cross has urged the new Colombian government to search for the over 83,000 people who disappeared in the country. The unit for the search for disappeared people was created as part of the peace accords between the Colombian government and the FARC, signed in 2016. Its director has said that political will is needed because families are yet to receive any response. Thousands of Hondurans are also marching to mark the day. They are demanding new presidential elections, a constituent assembly, and justice for social leaders and activists murdered during post-election protests in November. They also want the elimination of the military police and agrarian reform. And Brazilians are marking the day by visiting the memorial in Sao Paulo in honor of those who disappeared during the military dictatorship. The memorial is set on what used to be the Department of Political and Social Order, where the victims of the military dictatorship were held. According to a special commission, 1,200 people were tortured, murdered, or disappeared in Brazil during that time. Meanwhile, in Chile, those responsible for crimes against humanity are being released by the courts, much to the dismay of activists. Our correspondent in Chile, Paola Dragnich, has more details.
They let the murderers of the Augusto Pinochet dictatorship free, the ones who killed their families. And while today the whole world commemorates the International Day of the Disappeared, in Chile, family members cannot demonstrate because of the police of the special forces, who are preventing them to march freely through the avenue and preventing them also to be able to leave photographs of their families in La Moneda Palace. This is what is happening today, August 30th, on the International Day of the Disappeared.
At least 21 journalists have been reported missing in Mexico since 2003. The NGO Reporters Without Borders is saying this statistic is a record in the Americas. They say that the creation of the Specialized Prosecutor's Office for Investigation of the Crimes of Enforced Disappearance, promoted by the current administration of Enrique Peña Nieto, has, quote, not been accompanied by any concrete strategic action plan in the case of journalists. There has been no detailed public information on the progress of the investigations, nor a comprehensive compensation plan for families, as recommended by the National Human Rights Commission in 2016.
Each day, new fathers, mothers, and children disappear. Today, we gathered here for them.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again for more.
Ponownie zapytujemy, kiedy pan minister opracuje normy zanieczyszczeń dla środowiska odnośnie zanieczyszczeń gazowych.
Ja chcę czyste powietrze, żeby nie śmierdziało, żeby moja wnusia żyła w czystym powietrzu, zdrowo, tak? Żeby mogła żyć naprawdę zgodnie z przyrodą.
Telesur Documentaries presents Big Business, Negligent Conditions Behind the Food Industry and the Indifference of Authorities. Sunday, only on Telesur.
With developing events being presented through analysis, our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. Police in Ecuador have intervened against a demonstration to promote the rights of immigrants. The march under the slogan, "The oppressed have no country," was called in opposition to a nationalist group protesting against Venezuelan migrants. The police moved in to separate the groups, but then turned on the anti-fascist demonstrators, blocking their path and firing tear gas. The pro-immigrant march was significantly larger. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has arrived to Colombia as part of his Latin American tour. He was welcomed to the Casa Nariño Palace in Bogotá by Colombian President Iván Duque to kick off a two-day official visit. According to governmental sources, the main topics are economic and trade issues, but also Spain aiding possible peace negotiations with the National Liberation Army, or ELN. Sánchez has already visited Chile, Bolivia, and will go on to Costa Rica. In El Salvador, the Farabundo Martí National Liberation Front is hoping to secure an election victory. Presidential candidate Hugo Martínez has just hit the campaign trail. Our correspondent has the details.
Efectivamente, el candidato a la presidencia por el...
Martínez listened to the concerns of the people when he visited various municipalities. He was accompanied by his vice presidential running mate, Karina Sosa. The elections will take place next February. The party will officially present its candidates on its September convention. We go back to you.
Las necesidades que tienen para poder incluir.
That was Ernesto Ábalos in San Salvador. The head of Nigeria's Senate, Bukola Saraki, has announced he will run in February's presidential elections. That makes him the highest profile contender to the incumbent Muhammadu Buhari that has been announced so far. Saraki quit Buhari's All Progressives Congress, or APC, and returned to his old party, the PDP. He is Nigeria's third most senior politician. His challenge ratchets up the pressure on Buhari and increases the electoral uncertainties in Africa's most populous nation.
I hereby announce my intention to run for the office of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the elections of 2019 on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. I do this with a firm conviction that I have the good case to secure inclusive growth for Nigeria and Nigerians.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has arrived in Ghana to address investment and migration in the region. This is the second stop of her Africa tour, which has started with Senegal. She is expected to focus talks on migration since Ghana is a major source of people heading to Europe. Merkel is joined by several German CEOs to also focus on boosting business relationships.
We have to be able to also to address the root causes of how come these insurgencies have been able to take root in our areas. And that is the whole business of economic growth, the training of our youth, the acquisition of skills, and the creation of opportunities that would allow people to have a more positive engagement with life, rather than throwing bombs and maiming and destroying people.
Ghana received the best evaluation from Reporters Without Borders in regards to press freedom. It has gone through 3 peaceful transfers of power. Corruption, much can be still improved. One of the reasons why Compact with Africa makes sure that tax processes are transparent through digitalization also applies to foreign companies trying to evade tax. Overall, Ghana is one of the leaders of democratic development in Africa. Ghana and Germany share same values and principles.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and the President of Sierra Leone, Mada Bio, have met in Beijing and agreed to promote strategic cooperation. The African leader will attend the China-Africa Cooperation Summit and are set to sign various agreements. President Xi said that developing solidarity and cooperation with African countries has always been an important pillar of China's foreign policy. The Beijing summit gives opportunity for China to deepen ties with Africa. This will be held on September 3rd and 4th. The upcoming summit is the latest meeting pointing to the Forum on China and Africa Cooperation, known as FOCAC. Under its framework, China has removed tariffs on most African exports and has focused on cooperation projects involving agriculture, infrastructure, and public health. The Chinese Defense Ministry commented on the strengthening of military ties between China and Africa.
Looking ahead, China will continue to help Africa to enhance its security capacity, building independently, promote cooperation in multiple aspects, including personal training, logistics equipment, maritime escorts, peacekeeping operations, healthcare and humanitarian assistance, strive to usher in a new era for bilateral military ties, and make positive contributions to maintaining peace and security of Africa and the world at large.
Medical equipment has been donated by China to hospitals in Uganda to help improve healthcare. China has recently donated medicine and supplies worth $70,000 to the China-Uganda Friendship Hospital. Doctors say previously donated medical devices have helped reduce maternal death at the facility by 99%. The hospital was built in 2012 with Chinese funds in order to meet the surging medical demands of the country. Coming up, more stories. Stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur. The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador met with various Latin American diplomats on Wednesday. He aims to promote unity and cooperation among the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Ambassadors from 22 Latin American and Caribbean nations met with President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador.
We will always work for unity and cooperation with Latin America and the Caribbean. Our foreign policy will be based on non-interventionism and self-determination. We will always look for peaceful solutions for conflicts.
The diplomats welcomed López Obrador's policies.
This was a friendly meeting to introduce ourselves. Therefore, it won't be the last one. The president-elect assured us he will continue to hold meetings such as this to strengthen bonds between nations.
The incoming foreign minister said that over the next few months, his team will analyse the situation of each country in the region. This way, they'll make decisions on policies like whether to remain in the Lima group.
Nobody was missing. Ambassadors from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Chile, Colombia were all present. They all had different positions on issues, so our main objective is to work for Latin American and Caribbean unity. Despite any difference we may have, we respect all nations.
So far, there are hopes to strengthen regional bodies like the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC. Our position in regards to other blocs is to coordinate, to avoid conflict, so that our people may evolve in matters like human rights, employment, and migration. Migration remains a main issue. Every year, thousands of migrants from all over the continent cross Mexican territory with the goal of reaching the United States, only to be faced with the North American nation's cruel anti-immigrant policies. Policies which are thoroughly rejected by everyone attending Wednesday's meeting.
NAFTA negotiations between Canada and the United States are continuing through the night in order to hammer out a deal on a revamped North American free trade agreement before a Friday deadline. Despite some contentious issues still on the table, the increasingly positive tone contrasted with U.S. President Donald Trump's harsh criticism of Canada in recent weeks. Negotiations entered a crucial phase this week after the U.S. and Mexico announced a bilateral deal on Monday. And on Thursday, a Canadian court overturned approval of the Trans Mountain oil pipeline expansion. The court ruled that Ottawa failed to adequately consider the concerns of Indigenous peoples. The decision was a blow to Justin Trudeau's government, which agreed in May to buy the pipeline from Kinder Morgan, Canada, for $4.5 billion. Trudeau has portrayed himself as a friend to First Nations in Canada, but critics say he hasn't lived up to his promises. And now to another story. Thousands of people have taken part in a demonstration against right-wing violence in Berlin. It follows a series of far-right anti-migrant protests in Saxony. The demonstration was especially directed against recent right-wing protests in the city of Chemnitz, where a leak from a manslaughter investigation had denounced that 2 migrant suspects were involved. That prompted a violent reaction for far-right groups in Germany. Dozens of activists have gathered outside of the Center for Criminal Justice in Philadelphia to demand the release of ex-Black Panther member Mumia Abu-Jamal, who is serving life prison for the murder of a Philadelphia police officer in 1981. The former member of the Black Panthers and president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists was sentenced to death for the murder of Officer Daniel Faulkner. After numerous appeals, that sentence was commuted to life imprisonment without parole in 2011.
What the judge did decide, based upon the arguments made by Mumia's attorneys, is that he would grant a 60-day continuance for yet more searching of files.
The casket of music icon Aretha Franklin has been brought to her father's church in Detroit in the U.S. ahead of a tribute concert on the eve of her funeral. Thousands of fans have gathered to pay their respects to the Queen of Soul. Friday's funeral at the Greater Grace Temple is just for family and friends, but a concert honoring Franklin's life and legacy has been organized and thousands of fans are expected to attend. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you very much for watching.
Me gustaría tener un mundo mucho más inclusivo para todos.
没有贫穷.
Στην ανθρωπότητα θα ήθελα να δω παραπάνω αγάπη, αγνότητα, πολιτισμό και επαφή με τη φύση.
Que el ser humano despierta